Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Nathan Morrison never imagined that his career in the Global Space Science Council would lead to something as bizarre as the call he received that cold winter night. As a military officer stationed near the Council's sprawling headquarters, Nathan had grown accustomed to routine security checks, occasional emergency drills, and the dull hum of scientific jargon. Yet, the idea of extraterrestrial life, something many of his colleagues passionately theorized about, had always seemed absurd to him. So, when a voice crackled through his radio reporting the sighting of an alien woman in the vast forest surrounding the headquarters, Nathan's first reaction was disbelief. What? An alien? In the middle of the forest? He said aloud, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he stared out at the dense, dark trees beyond his cabin window. The voice on the other end was firm. This isn't a prank, Officer Morrison. Locals have reported strange sightings near the old observation tower. Lavender skin, glowing eyes. The details are consistent across multiple witnesses. Nathan shook his head, incredulous. Lavender skin? Glowing eyes? Sure. Why not throw in a UFO while we're at it? He sighed and rubbed his temples, but the voice continued insistently. Look, Nathan, I know how it sounds, but this report is credible. HQ wants it investigated immediately. You're the closest. Grab your gear and check it out. Nathan stared at the radio for a moment before muttering, unbelievable, under his breath. But orders were orders. Resigned, he donned his thick coat, strapped on his holster, and grabbed his flashlight. The cold bit into his skin the moment he stepped outside, the icy wind making him shiver despite his layers. The forest loomed ahead, its dark canopy blocking out even the faint glow of the moon. Nathan hesitated briefly before muttering, all right, let's get this over with, and trudging forward. The forest was eerily silent, the kind of silence that made every crack of a twig underfoot feel deafening. Nathan's breath fogged in the air as he pressed deeper into the trees, guided only by the faint beam of his flashlight and the occasional update crackling through his radio. Officer Morrison. The voice came again, slightly distorted by static. The last reported location is approximately 3 kilometers northeast of your position. The terrain is rough and the underbrush is thick. It might take you a while to get there on foot. Nathan rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath, fantastic. Let's just send the one guy without a vehicle to chase an alien ghost story. As he walked, his frustration grew. The night's cold seeped into his bones, and the oppressive silence of the forest only amplified his unease. Every shadow seemed to shift, every distant rustle, setting his nerves on edge. About an hour into his trek, the silence was shattered by a low, menacing growl. Nathan froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his weapon. Swinging his flashlight toward the sound, he saw them. 2 wild dogs, their yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness. The dogs stepped closer, their snarls growing louder. Nathan tightened his grip on his weapon. All right, fellas, he said, his voice low and steady. I don't want any trouble. But the dogs didn't back down. Their muscles tensed, ready to pounce. With no other choice, Nathan fired a warning shot into the air. The loud crack of the gun echoed through the trees, and the dogs yelped before bolting into the shadows. Lowering his weapon, Nathan exhaled shakily. Great start to the night, he muttered. At this rate, I'll be lucky if I make it out of here alive. Hours passed, the cold and fatigue wearing on him as he navigated the labyrinthine forest. Dawn's faint light began to creep over the horizon, casting a pale, ghostly glow over the trees. Nathan's heart leaped when he finally spotted the silhouette of the old observation tower through the dense mist. Finally, he whispered, his voice hoarse. Approaching cautiously, he noticed something unusual. The faint sound of chains clinking reached his ears, followed by a low growl. His flashlight swept across the clearing, and his breath caught in his throat. There, near the base of the tower, stood a woman unlike anyone he'd ever seen. Her skin was a soft lavender hue, shimmering faintly in the dim light. Her eyes glowed faintly, their light cutting through the gloom. Beside her, A large, snarling dog was chained to a post, its eyes locked onto Nathan with a mix of aggression and wariness. Nathan's hand hovered near his weapon, but he didn't draw it. Instead, he took a cautious step forward. "Hey," he called out, his voice steady but not unkind. "I'm Nathan Morrison. I'm here to help. Are you okay? Can you understand me?" The woman didn't respond. She stood perfectly still, her luminous eyes fixed on him. Nathan tried again, stepping closer. "Listen, you're not safe out here. Let me help you. Can you tell me your name? Where are you from?" The silence stretched on, broken only by the dog's low growls. Frustration bubbled up in Nathan. "Okay, this is ridiculous. You're in chains, in the middle of nowhere. At least give me something to work with here." Suddenly the woman spoke. Her voice was soft yet unnervingly clear. 10. Nathan blinked, confused. 10? 10 what? 10 hours? 10 days? Her glowing eyes met his, and she clarified. 10 years. I've been here for 10 years. The weight of her words hit Nathan like a freight train. 10 years? That's impossible. How? Who did this to you? The woman's expression darkened. They brought me here. They chained me. And then they left. Who? Nathan pressed, his voice rising with urgency. "I don't know," she replied. "But they're watching. They've always been watching." Nathan's blood ran cold. He glanced around the clearing, the shadows between the trees suddenly feeling alive. Nathan's radio crackled to life. "Morrison, you need to be careful. If they're watching, they might come for her. Get out of there." Ignoring the warning, Nathan knelt by the chains binding the woman. "I'm getting you out of here," he said firmly. Her voice stopped him. "If you free me, they'll come." Nathan looked her in the eyes, then let them come. With a few hard tugs, the chains broke. The woman stepped forward, her movements graceful yet alien. Nathan grabbed her hand. "Let's move," he urged, leading her into the forest. As they ran, the woman spoke, her voice calm despite their frantic pace. "They left me here to see if I would survive. I was a test, an experiment, but I survived. We don't need food or water like you do." Nathan glanced at her, his mind racing. "Who are they? Why would they do this?" "They said it was for science," she replied. "But I don't know the truth. All I know is that they'll come back for me." Nathan felt a chill run down his spine as her words sank in. The idea of someone or something capable of such cruelty made his stomach turn. "What happens when they come back?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's glowing eyes locked onto his. "They'll take me again, or they'll destroy everything to ensure I can't escape again. Either way, your world won't remain untouched." Nathan didn't respond. He was too focused on the forest around them, every rustling leaf and snapping twig setting his nerves on edge. The oppressive darkness seemed alive, as if the shadows themselves were watching their every move. When they finally reached the cabin, Nathan shoved the door open and ushered her inside. Both of them were out of breath, their faces pale in the dim light of the single bulb hanging from the ceiling. Nathan locked the door behind them, though he knew it wouldn't stop whatever was out there if it decided to come for them. The woman sat silently on a wooden chair, her gaze distant. Nathan poured a glass of water and offered it to her out of habit before realizing the gesture was pointless. She didn't take it, instead looking up at him with an expression that was almost apologetic. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. Nathan frowned. "Do what?" "Risk your life for me," she replied. "You could hand me over to your people, let them deal with what's coming." He snorted, shaking his head. "Yeah, because that's exactly the kind of person I am," he said sarcastically. "Look, I don't know who you are or what you've been through, but leaving you to fend for yourself isn't an option. Not for me." For the first time, her expression softened. It wasn't quite a smile, but it was close. "You're different," she murmured. "Most people wouldn't care." Nathan shrugged, leaning against the wall. "Maybe I'm just stupid," he muttered. "Or maybe I've seen enough crap in this world to know when someone needs a damn break." The moment was interrupted by a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the air. Nathan froze, his hand instinctively reaching for his gun. "What the hell is that?" She stiffened, her glowing eyes narrowing. "They're here," she said simply. What? Already? Nathan's voice rose, panic creeping in. We just got here. They don't wait, she said, standing. Her movements were fluid, almost too graceful, as if she were more shadow than flesh. You need to decide now. Run, fight, or give me up. Nathan's jaw tightened. Not happening, he said firmly. We fight. Before she could protest, the hum grew louder, the walls of the cabin vibrating under the force of it. A blinding light flooded the windows, and Nathan shielded his eyes as a sharp, metallic screech filled the air. They're trying to scare us, the woman said, her voice calm despite the chaos. But it's not just intimidation. They're testing you now, too. Nathan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. Testing me? For what? To see if you're worth sparing, she said, her tone grim. The next few minutes were a blur. The cabin walls splintered as an unseen force tore through them. Nathan fired blindly into the light. The sound of gunshots swallowed by the deafening hum. The woman moved with unnatural speed, pulling him out of the way of falling debris. Get down, she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. Nathan dropped to the ground just as the light disappeared, leaving them in a stunned silence. His ears rang and his vision swam, but he could feel the woman's hand on his arm, steadying him. They're gone, she said softly. Gone, he croaked, struggling to sit up. Just like that? For now, she replied. They've seen enough. Nathan stared at her, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. What the hell does that mean? It means you passed their test, she said, her glowing eyes meeting his. You proved you're willing to fight for more than yourself. That's something they respect, even if they won't admit it. Back at headquarters, the woman's story left the council stunned. She recounted her captivity and the horrifying experiments she had endured with a calm resilience that belied the trauma she had suffered. Despite their initial skepticism, the council quickly realized the value of her knowledge. She began working with their research teams, her insights opening new doors to understanding the universe and humanity's place within it. Nathan, meanwhile, struggled to adjust to life after the encounter. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were still being watched, that the beings who had come for her were far from finished with their plans. But he found solace in knowing he had made the right choice. The woman, now known as Lyra, quickly became an integral part of the team. Her bond with Nathan deepened, a friendship forged in the crucible of survival. Together, they faced the challenges of a world that was no longer as they once knew it, both aware that this was only the beginning of a larger story. Somewhere, far beyond the stars, her captors were watching and waiting. But for now, Nathan and Lyra had won, and that was enough.